Salut. Once again, we're going to review the basic conversation with the polite conversational expressions that form it at the beginning of this class today. But rather than going through the conversation between the two of us, I'll just tell you what I'd like you to be able to express. Remember, you're speaking to me in a formal sense, showing respect. First of all, how would you greet me? Right, you'd say bonjour. Now, I just said salut, which is a more familiar way to say hi, salut. But bonjour is just fine. You also, by the way, if you're in the evening, wanted to say good evening to someone, bonjour is good day. If you want to say good evening, you'd say bonsoir, bonsoir. And if you're saying good night, but this is something you'd say as you're leaving someone, bonne nuit, bonne nuit. Okay, bonne nuit. Now, how would you ask me how I'm doing, how I'm feeling? Remember, you're speaking formally. Use the vous form. Right, you'd say, comment allez-vous? Comment allez-vous? How would, if I asked that question of you, I'd say, comment vas-tu? How would you respond if I asked you how you were? Okay, you could say, très bien, or pas mal, or mal, in which case I suppose you'd have to explain why you're doing poorly. Next, ask me what my name is. Yeah, it's kind of a long, rollicking expression. Comment vous appelez-vous? Comment vous appelez-vous? And then after I responded and I asked you, comment t'appelles-tu? How would you tell me what your name is? Okay, you'd say, all right, you'd say, je m'appelle, and then you insert your name. How would you indicate to me that you're pleased to meet me? Okay, you'd say enchanté, and I will stick out my hand here. I'm not shaking my hand at you. You always shake hands in France. In fact, you shake hands when you first meet someone. You shake hands when you see someone for the first time every day, and you shake hands when you leave them for take leave of them for the last time in the course of the day. And not to do so, by the way, is called in French filer à l'anglaise, which means just to split like a British person does. Is literally what it means. That is to say, just to say bye. You don't do that. That's rude in France. When you say goodbye to someone with whom you're somewhat familiar, you go up and shake their hand, and then you leave. And by the way, you don't shake over and over again. It's just a quick shake like that, and then you depart. So when you see someone and greet them, you shake hands. When you leave them or take leave of them, you shake hands, and that's what I'm doing when I do this. Next, how would you? Oh, let's see. How would you ask me how old I am? Right, you'd say, quel âge avez-vous? It's not something you normally ask people, but it's good to know how to say it. And I would respond, j'ai 61 ans. And I would say to you, quel âge as-tu? How would you tell me how old you are? Assuming you know that number. Okay, you'd say j'ai, and then the number, ans. For example, say I'm 19, I would say, j'ai 19 ans. Or I'm 15, j'ai 15 ans. Okay? Now, let's say I'm offering you, I don't know, my cell phone. If I offered you my cell phone, how would you express appreciation? Right, you'd say merci or merci beaucoup. And if in return you gave me something and I thank you for it, how would you say, oh, that's nothing, or you're welcome, in a more formal sense, you're welcome. Right, you'd say, il n'y a pas de quoi. Il n'y a pas de quoi. A more informal expression, and an easier one to say, a brief one, is de rien. De rien. Okay? And last of all, how do you say goodbye? Au revoir. Au revoir. By the way, I'll throw a little quick comment in here for you. If you want to say goodbye, have a nice day, like they say at the checkout counters in grocery stores, or goodbye, have a nice evening, you would say au revoir, bonne journée, for a good day. You know bonjour, it's very similar. You say bonne journée. If you want to say good evening or have a nice evening, you'd say bonne, remember earlier I said bonsoir for good evening? When you're taking leave of someone, have a nice evening, you say bonne soirée. Bonne soirée. Okay. Okay, we're going to take a look now at lesson 1.16. I ask you to start to become familiar with the categories, that is to say masculine and feminine, to which different nouns belong. and to be conscious of the definite article, the word the, le or la, generally speaking, which precede these nouns, and to start to always, as you're learning vocabulary or reviewing vocabulary, always repeat the definite article. Not to say just repas for a meal, but le repas as you're repeating this vocabulary. Let me get a sense of how well you've been doing that, how much you've been applying yourself as we enter lesson 1.16 and go through the vocabulary at the top. Okay, with my cursor, I'm going to point at the different nouns here, which are reviewed at the top of lesson 1.16. And I'm not going to say the definite article, the le, the la, and as you'll see in a moment, l apostrophe, and le, the plural form for the word the. I'm not going to say the definite article before the noun. I'm simply going to say the noun. For example, lit. You will have to say both the article and the noun. You will say le lit, showing me that you know it's a masculine word. Okay? So here we go. Lit. Right. Le lit. Okay? Devoir. Okay, right away, right off the bat, we're stopped here. Les devoirs. Les devoirs. Now, what's les? Les is neither le nor la. So is the word masculine or is it feminine? What's les? Les is the plural way to say the, both for a masculine and for a feminine word. And homework, I suppose, because there's always so much of it, is always expressed in French in the plural. It's les devoirs. Les devoirs. It happens to be, and it's important that you eventually find this out, it's a masculine word. But for the moment, all you need to know is that it's les devoirs. Okay? Repas. Repas. Le repas. Le repas. Make sure you're saying the article and also the noun before I give you the answer. Radio. Radio. La radio. Okay? Next one down. Musique. La musique. And that applies also to la musique classique, la musique rock. Musique is the noun, and therefore the word la continues to be used. Next one. Vaisselle. All right. La vaisselle. Okay? And then here we have linge. Is it le linge? Is it la linge? Okay, it's not les linges because linge is not plural, it's a singular noun. So le linge. Next, petit déjeuner. Le petit déjeuner. If you're being successful, how do you know that it's le petit déjeuner and not la petit déjeuner? Well, you're learning really just like a French child would. By regular exposure to the word said numerous times, always with the le preceding it, you're becoming accustomed to hearing le petit déjeuner to the point where la petit déjeuner in time would be like, if you know what a blackboard is, they don't have those anymore, but taking my fingers and scratching my fingers down a blackboard, that's what it would sound like to a French person, for a person to say la petit déjeuner. And if you, as you're more and more frequently exposed to this word, it'll be like that for you as well. You would never dream of saying la petit déjeuner. It's le petit déjeuner, okay? Next. This is, by the way, déjeuner. Le déjeuner. Dîner. Le dîner. Céréales. A little bit of warning. Céréales is expressed as a plural noun. Right. All plurals are les. So, les céréales. Okay? Sandwich. Le sandwich. Légumes. Now, légumes, because we're speaking about different kinds of vegetables in the plural, is a plural noun. Right, it's les légumes, therefore, since it's plural, there's only one possibility. The plural is always les. By the way, if I was speaking about just one vegetable, that's a masculine word. It's le légume. But we won't trouble ourselves with too many details at the moment. Poisson. Is it le poisson? Is it la poisson? Right, it's le poisson. Bonbon. Now, bonbon are plural. It's a plural noun. So, les bonbons. Voilà. Pizza. La pizza. Hamburger. Okay, this is a tricky one. L'hamburger. Now, wait a minute. What's a l'hamburger? Hamburger. Where is it? Le? Is it la? Which is it? If a word starts with a vowel sound, if a noun starts with a vowel sound, and that means a word where your mouth is open to begin, hamburger, haricot, enfant, that vowel sound requires the use of an L apostrophe in French, which simply makes the sound L. It's not le, it's not la. You run the L together with the noun itself, and you have l'hamburger. L'hamburger. Now, is it masculine or feminine? Well, it happens to be a masculine word. You only know that through exposure, through experience, as that word is used with you. And you'll have, for example, an adjective. We're describing the hamburger, and it will be in the masculine form until you know that the noun is masculine. But patience. We'll get to that in due time. So it's l'hamburger, and it's a masculine word. Glace. La glace, okay? Sport, and in French, we don't speak out sports in the plural like we do in English. We say sport in the singular, even though it's referring to the whole domain of sports, all the range of different sports. So use a singular word for the before sport. Okay, it's le sport, okay? Now, animal is the singular, animal. How do you think, if I'm just talking about one animal, how would you say the word the prior to animal? Yeah, this is one of those times when you use L apostrophe, because animal starts with a vowel sound. My mouth is open. To say le animal is kind of awkward. Le animal. It's like a cow chewing its cud. Or saying l'animal, which is the wrong gender. But it also sounds awkward. And so L apostrophe before a vowel sound makes the word sound, the two words flow together more smoothly. L'animal. However, here we're not talking about one animal, we're talking about animals in general. The plural word for animal, which is slightly different, is animaux. Animaux. So the plural. What do you think you're going to use? Yeah, les. Les is the only way to say the in the plural. Les animaux. Now, it's not really said les animaux. There's something in French called a liaison, a way to connect words. You may have already heard this, where the sound z appears frequently after the word the in the plural, when the word is followed by the word the is followed by a vowel sound. It's actually said les animaux. Les animaux. Where does z come from? Don't worry about it now. But the point is, it's the spelling. It's the letter S at the end of les, which is normally silent, except when it's followed by a vowel sound. Your eyes are glazing over. Pay no attention to what I just said. Les animaux. Okay, here we go. Télé. Is it le télé? Is it la télé? That's the important kind of stuff right now. It's la télé. Okay. Film. Now, we're talking about movies in general. So, we're talking about in the plural. Les films. Good. Stylo. Le stylo. Crayon. Le crayon. Papier. Le papier. We're on a masculine role here. Voiture. No, it's la voiture. The streak ends. La voiture. Bus. Le bus. By the way, a bus is a bus within the confines of a city, a metropolitan bus. One that goes from city to city is called a car. A car, which I think in English we'd probably say a coach. But in any case, this is le bus. Next, train. Is it le train? Is it la train? Which is it? It's le train. And I love the train system in France, the SNCF, which can take you to almost any town you want to go to. That's fabulous. Very well developed. But no time to talk about that now. Table. La table. Argent. Now, because argent starts with a vowel sound, I'm not going to say le or la. That would be very awkward. Le argent. But l'argent, just the L apostrophe before the argent. L'argent. It's a masculine word, but you can't tell it by the L. You can only tell it from experience, exposure to the word, looking in a dictionary, etc. Feutre. Is it le feutre or la feutre? It's le feutre. Chaise. La chaise. Cahier. Le cahier. États-Unis. By the way, since we're speaking about individual states, you can probably figure that this will be the plural, and it is. You want the plural way to say the before États-Unis. Right, les États-Unis. Again, you hear that z sound at the end of les. It's because États-Unis starts with a vowel sound, e. So les États-Unis would be rather awkward sounding. Les États-Unis. That little z is thrown in there. It's called a liaison to make the words flow together more smoothly. Mexique. You may have heard this by now. It's le Mexique. France, and it's written right there for you. La France. Vive la France, en fait. Et puis Espagne. Now, Espagne starts with my mouth open, a vowel sound, so, right, l'Espagne. It's a feminine noun. It's the name of the country. Spain is feminine, but in any case, it's just for now. It's L apostrophe, l'Espagne. Okay. Well, that's a quick review of the gender of nouns that you've learned up to this point. Remember, you always repeat the word the prior to saying a noun as you're learning it or as you're reviewing it. I always say the word le, la, L apostrophe, or les prior to that noun, and you'll find that it'll simplify your task down the road. Well, that's it for today's class. I'm going to send you to the lesson in a second. You know, I used to live, my family and I lived for a long time in the Somme, la Somme. Notice it's feminine, la Somme, the region of France. And if you've studied World War I, if you like history, undoubtedly you've heard of La Somme. La Somme was famous for, sadly famous, for battles that went on in the course of World War I for an extended period, for numerous years, from 1914 to 1918. And the region was famous for the horrific, really, trench warfare. And when we lived there, we were surrounded by signs, not really monuments, not touristic spots necessarily, but just signs of what had gone on there 80 years prior to when we were living there. All around us, we were digging the backyard and found a bayonet. We were digging the backyard, we found some bullets, in fact. Not far from our home in just a field, we found some empty shells. They were empty, but shells from bombs that had been just left in that field at the end of the war. But it's not always an empty shell. I remember coming back from the city of Amiens, where I'd been teaching English, and as I was coming home, right next to a farmer's field where he just plowed up the field, I saw 3 shells, live shells, bomb shells, set up carefully, gingerly by the farmer, by the side of the road, which he'd plowed up in the course of his work, and which he'd set there for the demolition crew in Amiens to come out and pick them up. And on a little lighter note, my family and I used to play Capture the Flag in a wooded area not too far from our home. And on the boundary line between the two sides of the Capture the Flag game, we set a prison for both teams, both sides, and the prison we used was a crater, a bomb crater from World War I, which was probably a good 4 or 5 feet deep, and had rounded sides like that. So the traces, the marks of what had gone on there over that 4-year period was still very much evident, even 80 years later. And so, kind of like one of those generals who sadly had to send his troops up out of the trenches and to assault the other opposing army once again, I'm sending you back into lesson 1.16, and I'm sending you back to master the gender of nouns, to master the formation of a question in 2 ways, to master the creation of a negative statement and the conjugation of verbs. So that's your duty. Go back to it. You'll find in the long run, you'll be happy you did. I'll see you in the course of the next class. Au revoir.